I really liked that they chose to have a unseen, uh, monster throughout the entire thing, that you never actually got a glimpse of it. I think that that is sometimes a more powerful choice than actually giving visuals to the monster, because then it kind of lets the audience and their imaginations kind of run wild and fill in what is, kind of scariest to them individually, instead of, giving a body to, that this kind of, monster sometimes can take away from that a little bit. Little things like the wind or the sound or the fact that clearly it's airborne, things like that, just like little kind of hints about the characteristics, can sometimes be more powerful, because then, like I said, the audience kind of fills in their own personal, uh, creativity about it. And so I think that that was a really good choice. I really enjoyed that, actually. Um, but then I really liked that that wasn't the only kind of evil that they encountered, or that wasn't the only, maybe evil's not the right word, but that wasn't the only villain of the film, I guess. Because you also had the kind of human spirit and lack of food and lack of, safe options and safe housing, and how everybody just kind of dealt with that. Some of them were helpful and, trying to really be there, and then some were less than helpful, and, you just kind of saw all of these different aspects of when the human spirit is kind of pushed to this extreme.
This is a really interesting storyline, and I think you really enhance it with prosthetics and costuming, and you really round out these characters and you up the suspense. I think you have a great sense of pacing throughout this, and the camera work really ups the anticipation of a lot of these scenes, and ups the suspense of a lot of it. I think this is an interesting story. I think this is an interesting take on this kind of horror. I think it was written really well. I think the dialogue was really good for a horror, as a lot of horrors tend to skimp out on the dialogue, and I think you do a really good job of enhancing that. I think these are some really fun characters, and you do a great job of editing this all together to create a really well-rounded and thrilling piece.
Such a clever opening scene. It is both disgusting and totally enticing of what's coming. I love the performances. They complement it very well with great special effects, and their music score is top notch. I loved it too. They explore this idea of a peaceful community being portrayed as hunting grounds for whatever. And it is so mysterious and cryptic that it's just a brilliant idea. The concept, I loved it. The execution too, the special effects are so well done, with the parts, the body parts just spread around. After being snatched by something that no one knows what it is, only that it goes through the winter. It was very original. I also loved how they explored this compulsive behavior on top of an imminent threat. It just adding on top of the already very calamity situation. A story of subtle cold vengeance with apples, of all things, and survival through grit, trust, and perseverance. Overcoming fear and pain, and executing a plan to save themselves until this thing hits again.
It checks all the boxes for me. Really strong writing, some fantastic performances that really help just sell the whole thing. Yeah, those went a long way. Great cinematography, and also the pacing too. Really takes its time at some moments, but then all that sort of tension builds up, and they do a great job with that. And you've got moments of suspense and no real like clumsy cliche stuff. It was just a really thoughtfully constructed film that was clearly put together with people not only who have a passion for it, but really understood the genre and how to do just do so much without going overboard in any way.
At the beginning of the film, we're given this very gluttonous greed when it comes towards food, which is sustenance to our body. It's the very thing that keeps us in existence and going forward. And we see at first, is it food that's being taken or humans? And you kind of find that there is mystery within all of this. So in this piece, we really dive into what it's like to take time to be in your home. We see situations where they're desperate for food. There's people hopping from home to homes, taking the risk, and then finding, very heinous situations of just sadness in the homes. And when we finally reach this moment of salvation, our main character finally gets a chance to sleep and leaves an apple at the end of his bed. And we see the other humans tempted to take this apple. And I think there's this other approach of this idea of a poisonous apple, so to speak. And so when the gentleman makes this decision to steal this apple and eat it, it really is the biggest thing to happen to him, because it all, it leads to his demise, because we find that there's something gone wrong with the food here.
See the fact that this family just moved in, there's no food in the fridge, which leads to this whole scene about shopping, where they allude to some food can be good for you, some food can be safe to eat, some food cannot because it's poisonous, how you detect it by the smell. And then you keep seeing references to this sort of purple overlay, which is representing the point of view of something that's in the sky that we find out has been eating the neighbors. Sort of like you come to think of it as like maybe a bird or some sort of a predator in that way. And then it leaves these neighbors with a choice to either evacuate or stay put. So the wife and husband have a very interesting relationship. There's often times where she kind of emasculates him with him not being able to put the crib together, or, she just seems like she demeans him a little bit in his masculinity. And so then she saves this young boy, and he tries to stay with them for a while. And it further complicates their dynamic because this boy has a lot of selfish tendencies. He seems to care mostly about himself, which ends up being to their detriment, because not only does he selfishly try to seduce his pregnant wife, he eats every bit of the food that they had saved up for them until winter, leaving them starving and with no choice but to venture out for food, which risks their lives. He ends up losing his wife because of this and has to deliver a baby from their corpse, and almost ends up being killed by this unseen assailant himself, but is spared by the neighbors, who decides to sacrifice herself, likely because since her whole family is gone, also due to hunger, she sees no further reason to carry on pretending to be something that he's not. This man has already seen his true colors based off what he did in his own household. It was a great way to make the story come full circle. And yeah, it was overall great.
I love the very strong performances of the cast, notably the main couple, showing such loyalty and love for one another. I enjoyed the storyline in this one, very claustrophobic feeling as characters are completely trapped and isolated in fear. Good camera work of the zooming drone shots as the monsters fly over and the trees turn pink. Effective, ominous soundtrack. Fine editing, notably the scene when Nash is trying to break into the bedroom, so terrifying. Awesome direction, and the whole team worked together to create a very suspenseful film. Excellent makeup and grisly prosthetics.